I know what's down path A. I know I can hold down a corporate job. I know I can be type A. I know I can be a jerk. But what if I'm not? What if I pursue door number two? So that's when I said, you know what, I'm going to do it.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Life on Your Terms podcast. As many of you know, I started this podcast while I was on my own 6-month sabbatical earlier this year. I took a break from burnout in corporate America and really just wanted to explore who I am outside of work. Today, for the first time, we are talking to someone about their sabbatical in real time while they are going through it. My guest, Sophia Michelonis, just left her corporate job in finance and started her sabbatical a couple of weeks ago. So I'm excited for you all to hear what a sabbatical is really like, the good, the neutral, and the challenging times. So, Sophia, welcome to the Life on Your Terms podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So you are officially now on sabbatical. Like, it's super, super fresh. I think you gave your notice to your former employer a few weeks ago, and you've been officially on your break for 2 or 3 weeks now. So I wanted just to start with asking you how the past few weeks have unfolded and how that experience went of turning in your notice and then, realizing, wow, I actually did the thing I've been thinking about. I'm now in the break, I'm not working, and just how those emotions have been for you in the first couple of weeks.
So, to be honest, it has been a roller coaster. I thought after I put in my notice, I would feel a sense of relief because my role in finance is very high pressure, high stakes, high visibility. But instead, again, it's been a roller coaster. Some days I feel remorse, some days I feel regret, some days I feel excited, some days I don't want to get up. And I think it's because my whole life I've been trying to, make it, to beat the odds and to have, beaten the odds, go to college, get a good job. I've tied a lot of my personal value, my personal validation with my title and who I am. And I'm trying to rewire myself, and I didn't realize how much time that really takes.
Was it something you think you could have prepared for, like these maybe, not necessarily overly positive emotions? Like, had you kind of expected that was how you were going to feel, or were you surprised once you gave your notice at these sort of mix of emotions?
Yeah, I don't know what I could have done to prepare differently. I think I was so concerned with making it to the finish line, wrapping up all of my projects, making sure my team was in a good place. I didn't even focus on myself. So yeah, maybe in hindsight, I could have focused more on myself and trying to, unwind how tightly wound I was, going up to my resignation or putting in my notice. But yeah, in hindsight, I don't know.
So when did you initially start thinking about your sabbatical? Like, for how long did you consider taking this leave?
So it's so funny. In college, I chose finance because those are the most companies that would come to campus to recruit. I have always been a creative person. I always liked marketing, but there wasn't really a lot or huge marketing presence. And I remember kind of like I would say like my last semester, senior year, I'm looking at my friends, I'm looking at my advisor saying, you know what, this isn't what I want to do. And everyone's reminding me that I can start over. You can start taking these classes, but you will be in college longer. You are essentially restarting. So I knew I had to finish what I started. And I would say as soon as I began my professional career, I knew that this wouldn't be the long run. So secretly, I've been like squirreling away like each of my bonuses, knowing that I would need to take a step away. I would need to cash out. But in some companies I worked for, it was so much fun. There was a good balance of creativity and finance. I didn't even notice it. I forgot about the rainy day fun. But as I began to climb this ladder, I just realized, you know what? This isn't me. I don't like who I'm becoming. I don't like what I'm, giving out or like what aura I'm radiating. And this isn't me. So I've been thinking about it for a while.
I think I did the same. Like I just without even like really being conscious of it, I was like saving away for that like if there came a day where I was just like I can't do it anymore, I was definitely like doing the exact same thing. Um and you said you didn't like who you were becoming. Do you think that that had a lot to do with finance and your specific function, or do you think it was corporate America and like the downfalls of the system? Like, how can you kind of pinpoint what it was that was driving you to not be thrilled with the person you were becoming?
Well, yeah, I think before the pandemic, the whole concept of work-life balance, it was, it's kind of like a joke. People are like, what work-life balance? I would get advice like, it's the balance you create, but there really wasn't space for that. Um, at least in the roles that I've had, I've been incentivized on working hard, taking on more than you can handle, putting in more than 40 hours, cutting people off, being direct, getting straight to the point, results, results, results. And then you look around and you're like, hey, I'm being kind of rude to my friends. Like I'm showing up at the birthday dinner just all about like, okay, come on, hit me with your top 10 topics. I only have an hour. And everyone else is relaxed. But I just saw or began to see everything as like a to-do list. Check, 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 move to the next thing. So yeah, I just think it's what corporate became and also kind of like the myth of work-life balance. I think the pandemic as well as most recently my mom, she fell ill. And so I'm an only child. I had to, step up and uh, help her with some of her medical issues. And I'm no doctor. Like you could have seen me. I was on Google trying to Google these medications, trying to spell them appropriately, because who can spell some of these medications, trying to figure out some of the, doctor talk or doctor jargon. And sitting with her, she had so many shoulda, coulda, wouldas. She was like, I wish I would have, or why did I never take up that opportunity? And I realized that's when it really hit me like, you know what? Why am I doing this? Why am I pushing myself so hard? I am able bodied, able minded. She isn't. Like, what am I waiting for? And I thought about the little rainy day fund. I was like, you know what? I think this might be on cue. This might be the point or the time where I need to get out of the vortex, the corporate vortex that sucks you in.
Yeah, no, it does. I think that's something really, I don't know if it's generational, but I really love about people today, and especially our generation, is like I feel like people are really attuned to, I don't want to have regrets later on in life. Like I only get one shot. Like I want to chase my dreams, chase my purpose. And I think that's amazing because we do hear from people who are maybe older than this, like, oh, I wish I would have done this, or I wish I would have gone back and gotten this degree or pursued this passion. And it's hard to see people you love push that down. So I think it's really great that we see that and want that for ourselves.
But you know what? I think the other flip side is the guilt that comes with it, right? Like
Yeah.
we look at our parents and we're like, hey, they worked that one job, that factory job, hypothetically, using their hands, bleeding, like all of this stuff for, I don't know, 20 years, 40 years. Who am I to say I'm unhappy? Who am I to, look in the mirror and say, this doesn't work for me? So I think that's part of some of those feelings that I'm having, the
Mm-hmm.
remorse, the regret, the validation I get from my title. It's like, but wait, I'm a person first, right? Not
Yeah.
just a worker, not just a senior VP, senior director, senior manager, whatever. I actually care.
Yeah. Well, and going back to something you said about the qualities or the traits you were exhibiting at work that kind of made you think, hey, maybe I'm not being the best coworker. I would assume, because it's similar to me, that some of those traits are what also got you the pat on the back, got you the promotion, which is also like so hard to wrestle with because it's like two parts of your brain. One is like, I don't know if this is the best way to like be a good human, but the other part's like, this is also what's making me an overachiever and successful at work. And it's just this like weird dichotomy, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes us good humans is when there's a good balance, right? A balance between hyper focus on this and hyper focus on that instead of I said that wrong. It's good when there's a good balance of who we are instead of hyper focusing on, being direct or being a go-getter or putting all of this effort. And I
Yeah.
think, at least for me, that's what was missing. There was no balance. It was
Yeah.
just me checking boxes. Oh yeah, I took my walk today. Yes, I got my exercise in, but did I really was I alone with my thoughts? When I called
Hmm.
that person to check in with them, did I really was I really hearing them and listening? Or was I just saying, yep, talk to you next week because that's what we do. Check
Hmm.
box.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think like one thing a sabbatical has given me, and I have seen other people take the same, is like just a reminder of your, morals and values and what you do put first at work. It's definitely different for me than it was pre-sabbatical. So going back to how you made this decision, like I just want to dive deeper into how did you find the courage and conviction to actually take a sabbatical? Because what I found is the act of doing that is the hardest part because you're concerned with what other people are going to think. You have your partner to worry about. And in your case, you also have kids. Like, how did you find the courage? Because most people, I think, just daydream about this. I daydreamed about taking a sabbatical for years. I don't think I ever thought I would do it. And I still think one of the most empowering things was me actually stepping into it. But like, what gave you that courage?
Well, I mean, I'm still trying to find the courage. To be honest, I haven't told many people what I'm doing and why, just because I'm afraid of the judgment. But one thing I remember people telling me as a mom is that you can't pour from an empty cup. And I started to think through that, like, but what am I pouring out of this cup? Am I pouring out, impatience? Am I pouring out, irritable? Am I being extremely irritable? Am I, not, a person that dialogues? Am I just, I don't know, just
Go, go, go.
who am, yeah, yeah, go, go, go. And that's what I saw in my kids' eyes. I saw that from me, they expected me to have a short fuse. I saw from me, they expected to be rushed. And I didn't want that. And I feel like they're still at the point where they like me and I can impact who they are. And for instance, this weekend, I was actually able to sit and read, like listen to them read to me, and I read to them and sit there and be present in the moment instead of, I have to do this, I have to pick up the dry cleaner, how's the pot on the stove? It was like truly being connected. And I know I'm just at the beginning stages, so you appreciate everything in the beginning, but I think that's what gave me the courage, is looking in their eyes and I could see the panic. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, I actually love you, kid. You're not the one that I want to have panic in your eyes. And that's not who I am. So yeah, I just think it's like what I was pouring out and what I saw as my reflection. It was
Mm,
just scary. So I was like, I have to do something now. I have the power to change it. So why not now? And I kept thinking, well, you know what, I could push it, I could push through another 3 months, I can push through another 6 months. And then I thought to myself, but what will that give me? That just gives me more frustration, more impatience. And I could be missing, there's a lot of people say, tomorrow isn't promised and you can't predict the future, but who knows what would happen in 6 months? And I would wish I could. And also, like, I feel like all the signs were pointing to do it now, taking
mm,
care of an ill parent, actually recognizing that reflection in my kids' eyes, knowing, okay, I have enough squirreled away, I could do it. I was just like, what? I know what's down path A. I know I can hold down a corporate job. I know I can be type A. I know I can be a jerk. But what if I'm not? What if I pursue door number two? So that's when I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. And yeah, every day I actually have to write down an affirmation card to remind myself why I did it, And it says things like, pursuing these jobs wasn't a waste of time, but staying would have been, because I realized like my talents weren't being used at this moment the way that they need to be used. And it also on that affirmation card, it says, your value isn't derived from your title. Your value is from who you are within. And I know it sounds corny writing an affirmation card, but for me, seeing it written, that's what gives me the courage every day to just keep going and not to call my former employer back and say, "Hey, I made a mistake. I'm sorry."
They'd probably take you back, to be honest. But I think it's amazing you're having these realizations and you're only a couple weeks in, because I can tell you, like, it took me a while, but one of the things that I came to realize, and it was my first post on LinkedIn about my sabbatical. Like before that, I was just living in this like, hidden bubble. But the post was being selfish is one of the most selfless things you can do. And you just said that, and I get chills especially when people talk about kids, because I just, even not as a mom, I feel like I just applaud you so much, because you being selfish and saying, hey, I'm gonna, take a step away from my job is ultimately one of the most selfless things you can do for your kids, like giving them quality time. And, let's say you go back to a corporate job in 6 months, I can guarantee you that you will be forever changed. Like you're not going to go back in 6 months and flip a switch and be like, oh, I'm back to the just got to get through the day, Sophia. That's what I found for myself, is like, it's just the gift that keeps on giving, because it'll shift your perspective. And then you can integrate those lessons back into whatever the future holds. But I think that it's, and also you said your kids are younger. I think that's such a critical time for you to be able to, realize this now versus maybe when they're older and moving out of the house. Like it's just, I feel like going to make the years with them that much richer.
I agree.
So one of the things you told me when you reached out, Sophia, and I just so appreciate you sharing this to me, because it was a good reminder. And I learned from you sharing your story that as a Black woman, there are, extra layers that went into the decision of taking a sabbatical and saying, hey, look at me, I'm making all this money. I've got like a cushy corporate career. But, I'm not as happy as I could be, or I just want to take time to rest. Like, can you tell me again, and for anyone listening, like, as a woman of color, what were all of those extra layers that go into what can look like a very like selfish, like, decision to, let's say, your parents or those in your inner circle?
Yeah. So my grandparents and my great grandparents, they suffered a lot, right? I mean, I grew up in the South, so Jim Crow was, live and in full effect. And it was definitely instilled in me as a child that, hey, we're making sacrifices so that way you can make it, right? Like, people would, help me or give me money to, just be able to take driver's ed classes, or they would help me, give me money to apply to college, because everyone, applying to college isn't free. You have to pay the application fee and all these things. Or people would, take off a day of work, like my aunts and uncles, to actually drive me to like an extracurricular activity just so I could have exposure. So I knew the weight, at least me personally, in my upbringing, I knew the weight of the sacrifices that they made to help me make it. I say that in quotations, meaning to graduate high school, to have a well rounded experience, to apply to multiple colleges, to graduate college in 4 years, to get a job right after college, to be married, to have kids, to live on my own. Like that's in my family, that's the definition of like making it. Because I live outside of the state that I was born in. So I live very far away from my family. And I just, to be honest, I feel a little shame. I feel a little embarrassment to say, hey, I'm not happy, family, with the soul sacrifices I'm making, when they're thinking, yeah, we have made our own soul sacrifices to get you here. But, with that additional education, comes choices, comes opportunity. And I felt like I would be doing them and myself a disservice if I didn't seize this opportunity to pivot on those choices, to say, okay, I was fortunate enough to work in a job that gives me a bonus structure. I am fortunate enough to, know that I can use enough of it. I used to work in finance, so I know I can use a corner of that, to just invest in myself. But also, I think generationally, it would be terrible for them to put all of that in me and for me to, I would say, ruin it by tainting my kids, making them equally as impatient or making them mini jerks in the making or um, having them not appreciate the little things. And by stepping off of this ladder, I'm taking time to truly actually like smell the flowers, to look around, appreciate them, to pull my kid's hand, to point to the bees and the flowers and help them put their hands in dirt to get that feeling, that true connectivity to who they are, as well as who we are as a family collectively. And then, yeah, I'm more than willing to get back on the ladder, but I feel like I have to take a pause, especially because I'm away from family. So I don't even have the village. I can't even necessarily outsource that to like an aunt or uncle who lives down the street. It all kind of falls on me. And that's another reason why I said, I do need to take a sabbatical because I was at that point where I was outsourcing everything, outsourcing groceries, outsourcing daycare. I mean, they go to school. Granted, I mean, school is great. I am not homeschooling my children, but taking the time to actually sit with them and care, that's more important. And when I do have that conversation with my family, I haven't had it yet, so we'll have to talk about that in the future. But when I do have that conversation with them, that's what I will lead with. And hopefully, I'll be confident enough to deal with their judgment and their criticism along the way.
Well, I think you understanding why they could judge you or be frustrated is like huge because yeah, if you put yourself in their shoes, it's like they made so many sacrifices just so you could have the thing you just gave up. So it's like I think it's okay, and I can't relate fully as a white woman, but also come from a family where there were a lot of sacrifices. My dad didn't go to college. My parents made a lot of tough choices. We lived in 5 different states. Like also that, I could have the thing. And I felt the same way. It was like, oh my gosh, did I just like crush their dreams? Cause they're thinking like, she just gave up everything she's been working on and they paid for my college tuition. Like, I think that that's normal to feel shame about that. Cause if we just threw that out the window and didn't feel shame, like that would, that would be
Yeah.
concerning. So it's okay to like have the two, I guess, like, feelings of that, but also, yeah, but, generationally, don't we want to evolve to aspire to have more? There's like this Maslow's hierarchy that I come across in a lot of books I read where it's like 5 layers, and that fifth layer is like, okay, you've got the job, you've got the success, but now you are like seeking more, like you're seeking spiritual development or like whatever it is. So to me, I still wrestle with that. I think I don't know that, I expect my parents to ever fully understand, and that's okay. But, I do think it's like a balance. I don't know that it's their way or our way, but it is this like recalibration of what success means and what happiness means. And I don't know why our generation, I feel like, grew up with this idea that work in our careers were going to be the source of all of our like happiness and spiritual fulfillment. And one thing I've kind of come to realize is like, and I say this not to be like pessimistic or like a dream killer, but it's like, it's okay if work is just work. Like work is just a paycheck. It doesn't need to be like the thing that's going to make you feel fulfilled. But I used to think that, and it sounds like maybe you did a little bit too. So then when you pour yourself into that and you don't get it back, it's like, well, wait a minute, why isn't this thing making me happy? And I don't know if our parents thought the same. I don't think mine did, at least, but I don't think they viewed work as like, this is the answer, because they did have a little bit more of like the community and maybe a fuller, like more slices of the happiness pie. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, I do think our parents' generation lived more, was less transient, right? Like,
Yeah.
or transplant. I mean, you can meet anybody down the street. Oh yeah, I'm originally from here. We just moved, so on and so forth. So I think our generation, we were uprooting ourselves, replanting, and yeah, normally we do that for work. So yes, work becomes like our sole, our initial source of those things. And it doesn't help that work always says, we're a family, we care. We have all these happy hours. And for me, at least growing up in the South, like the church was a huge community component. Even if work was terrible and almost everyone had blue collar jobs, a few people had white collar jobs, but church or going to the same insurance agent or going to the same gas station to fill up your car, that's where you got like your happiness meter refilled, or where yeah, it got refilled. And I think because it's more of a transplant culture, that's kind of where we get stuck. And on top of that, we all have these devices that allow us to tap into a community and tap out. So we could be as far removed from anything if we want. So I think the onus is on us to find that community, or find what actually gives us joy instead of it coming to us or us being surrounded by it. And often when we're in the corporate ladder, let me climb, we neglect that part because it isn't the squeaky wheel. It's just a wheel.
Oh, I love the way you just articulated that. It could be like a paragraph from a sociology book. I love that. Yes. And it's so, if you like, I almost want to do this exercise. If we sat down and made a list of all of those connection points that are lost in today's society, it's huge. We're, ordering delivery instead of going to, restaurants and talking with people. Everything you just said, we're sort of, yeah, you could live in a bubble and get everything you need through technology if you really wanted. And even thinking back to the way I grew up, very, very different. And yeah, that sense of community, even with your neighbors, like how many people talk to their neighbors anymore? I've lived in apartment buildings for years where we like never get to know our neighbors. It's really sad. And even now being in a neighborhood, like I brought cookies to our neighbors when we first moved in, and they like the shock on their face was like, I'm sure they've just never seen that before. But growing up, my mom was like, yeah, when we moved into a new neighborhood, the way she made friends is we brought cookies to the neighbors. But nowadays it's just like, even my husband was like, what are you doing? Like that is so I hate to say that, we like that did not make us be friends with them. We don't really, see them all that much, but I never
I
got
need you to do
cookies in
better.
return, but it's fine. uh um okay, so switching gears a little bit, as I said earlier, a couple of things I've heard about, me not being a mom is like, even from my own mom, it's like, oh, well, yeah, you leaving your job must have been so much easier because you don't have the obligations, like financially. A lot of people think as a parent, like that's not even an option, right? Like going back to the sacrifices our parents made, like my parents made sacrifices for their own jobs for my sister and I. So there's that. And then also, I talk about this a lot with my friends who are parents, this idea of like your part of your purpose in life and your fulfillment comes from being a parent and comes from your kids, but that can't be it. Like that can't be the answer to, well, yeah, I'm so unhappy with my career, but it's okay because I've got kids and that's where I derive all my joy from. Can you speak to kind of those both things and how you view that decision as a mom yourself?
So because I have kids, I'm not truly able to like step out of, because when I think of a sabbatical for a single person, I think of, being able to travel the world, truly unplugging from your phone, like truly able to do like a reset or retreat. So I would say the 8 hours, or I would say the 6 hours I get between dropping them off and picking them up, is where I really try to focus my time and effort, not only in managing their schedule, their, extracurricular schedule. They always have something to do, but also the family, the household schedule. I mentioned before, like almost everything was outsourced. Now I actually have the time to like truly do the landscaping the way I want to do it, and like actually go to the the gardening place to say, hey, what's really in season or what should I use instead of me just yelling at the gardener or firing him or getting a new one. But I put together a list of things that I just have to do daily. So like journaling, making my bed, going for a walk, like in silence. Sometimes I listen to podcasts and sometimes I don't, but I try to do those things, those habits, those small things, just to stay connected with who I am. And then again, when the kids come home or when I pick them up, I do feel like I'm able to truly care and listen and invest the time and effort into it. Um, I do think it comes with a little extra weight because I know I need to be productive, right? Like for instance, when I was working full time, I would get up at 5:45 a.m. to get a workout in because when else do you have like solid time to get a workout in? Also, if I did it at the end of the night, I was too wired to go to sleep. So I still get up at that time. I still fit in a workout. I still, dress pretty, put on a full face of makeup and get dressed every day because I feel like my kids still need that and I need that. What I learned from the pandemic, I need that to feel most like myself and most in the element. And also when they bring home those little flyers like, hey, mom, can you volunteer? Hey, there's a bake sale. Instead of me being annoyed, they're actually picking up that I actually want to do it for them and I want to participate in these things for them. Instead of me yelling at my husband because he doesn't tell me about his day, I I'm there to just be, just to sit there on the couch, let him, zone out to TV or whatever, but I'm able to be there in that moment and appreciate it instead of give me your bad day so I can tell you my bad day and let's keep going. So I think being a mom actually forced me to keep my day structured and to keep part of myself. I mentioned I was type A, so I think maybe keeping those habits and checking them off is still type A and still productive in a sense. And I feel like investing in myself by still, taking a shower, putting on a full face of makeup, still getting quote unquote dolled up actually helps me, with my thought process. And then I'm toying around with this idea. I still have 3 more classes left on my MBA. And I'm
Mm,
like, maybe now's the time for me to buckle down and, get those last 3 classes done. So
that's
I
amazing.
said a lot.
I know that it reminds me, that being a mom is a full-time job. Like just as women, it just boggles my mind how we're still expected to do it all, to work the 40 plus hour week, to, be a mom, be a parent, but also if you don't have kids, like we all know that a lot of the responsibilities or like emotional worry just naturally do fall on women more than men. And it's a lot. And I bet I found I was never bored on my sabbatical. I bet you're going to find you're really never bored, but you're just productive and, more fulfilling ways. And one of those ways, being a mom. So that's amazing.
And that there's this, I guess, the saying that goes around, right? Women can have everything. And I really feel like you can have everything, but you can't have everything at the same time, right?
Oh,
Even in a marriage is not 100% both people. Sometimes your spouse puts in 70, sometimes you put in 30, sometimes it's 90-10. And that's also what gave me the confidence to do the sabbatical or to actually, it's not doing a sabbatical. To take a sabbatical was I was trying to have everything at the same time. I was trying to have awesome kids, an awesome career, an awesome marriage, awesome household, and something had to give. And I feel like I was giving a little less to everything, or I was giving a little bit to everything. How about that? Just to keep those boxes checked. And until I like really looked around and said, hey, this is not sustainable. I mean, sure it is. Sure, I could keep going. Sure, I could turn into a machine and a robot. That's not what I want. And I don't think that's what, my kids would want. I'm hoping when they look back, they'll say, oh, yeah, I remember we did this and we did that. And that was a good point instead of, yeah, mom, I could never come to you because you were always busy. Or, you always made me feel like I did something wrong when I would ask you a question, or you never had time to answer my questions. I don't want that to be the reflection. So,
yeah, I think we forget that we have a choice about where we overinvest across all of the buckets of our life. And I hear a lot of women, I was this person, like almost without even realizing it, making trade-offs and areas outside of work and pouring more into the work bucket. And it's one of the most amazing lessons. And you sound like you're already aware of it, which is great, is like, you have a choice. Like it's scientifically proven there are trade-offs. Like if you're going to be 110% at work, you physically can't, emotionally can't be 100% with your family. So, even an exercise I've done mentally is like deciding, where do you want to give 100% or where do you want to give a little bit less? And I've deliberately chosen now to give less at work and more in other areas of my life. And a lot of people are afraid to say that because they think, oh, so you're a slacker. Absolutely not, because I was giving like 140% at times at work. So, and honestly, like my 80% is still pretty solid. So, we give way too much to employers. Yeah. We give way too much to employers and like people who are not even in our inner circle. It's amazing to me that we're willing to overinvest there, but not with our families or with our church or with our community. It's like so backwards.
But I think it's because we've always been overachievers. And what do overachievers get? More. They give you more. So you take on more. And on top of that, setting a boundary, I don't know about you, but at work, I would feel so much guilt to like leave at a decent hour or, come in a little later because I had either a personal appointment or, there was a detour and I couldn't wazy my way around it. There's just so much guilt. And I also felt like I wasn't confident in setting boundaries. As soon as I would start to set a boundary, I would say, man, but how does that make me look? Or um, will this come back to bite me? Or, how does this impact my team? And to your point, I'm hoping that when I do step back onto the ladder, I'm comfortable in my boundaries because to your point, it's not that I'm giving less, it's I'm giving you what you need.
Mm-hmm. I think like it takes us as future leaders, of the society to have that mindset, because I know for a fact people I've managed, the, younger Gen Z generation, like they want more balance. Like they don't want to be, the, what I would say, I don't want a blanket statement, but like some of my managers who have been boomers, like who do have that mentality of like, oh, you weren't here at 9, or like, oh, you didn't go the extra mile. Like I know Gen Z is looking for more of a balance. So like we, need to be those people who, it starts with us. Like the change, I believe, starts with us, no matter how slow it is. But if we can model that behavior of like, hey, guess what? Like when you take time for yourself outside of work, when you're not giving 110% at work, it actually makes you a more well-rounded person. It makes you a nicer person. Like it's going to take time, I think, to get there, because I still see a mix of behaviors in the workplace. I see the two ends of the spectrum, and I feel like I'm somewhere in the middle, and it's like, it'll just take time to, I think, change that way of being in corporate and resetting expectations in a healthy way.
But I thought the pandemic, forcing us all to work from home, forcing us all to rely on technology would get us there sooner. But now it looks like we're regressing. I've seen a lot of companies saying, "Hey, come back to the office or you're, giving employees ultimatums. Come back to the office or you won't be employed." And it's like, man, we made so much ground together because we were forced to. And now we're all regressing. Sometimes I hear from managers like, unless we're all in the same room, we can't collaborate. And it's like, but we did it. We all did it over Zoom, over Microsoft Teams, over all these platforms. It's possible. So, to your point, if we continue to lead by example and keep pushing, we'll get there.
Yeah, I think more people, employees don't realize how much power they hold, because if suddenly 80% of your workforce is saying, well, I'm not coming into the office like you're demanding, what are they going to do? Fire 80% of the workforce? Like, I don't think so. I think that employees sometimes just don't realize how they can step into that power and say, I don't believe that I need to be in office to be able to get work done. So I can say I've been in that situation where I was, being asked to pass some to my team to make sure we were in the office more. And I kind of just like didn't do it, or instead of 2 days, it was like one day, and nothing really came of it. It's more of like I said, like I haven't heard of many employers outside of a couple where it's like you do this or you get fired. So I don't know. I'm confident. Like I think about the positives as like there are a lot of hybrid models, like big companies doing hybrid, 1 day in the office, which I'll take any day over going in 5 days a week. But I think in terms of like what success looks like and how much you expect to give at work, I don't know if that's changed as much. And that's what I'm hoping does change at a quicker pace, is like, what that modeled leadership behavior is of how much you're pouring into work versus other areas.
Yeah, and I would expect with technology advancing that there would be more give on that, right? Like reports that would take you, days to do by hand. People can put together a code and, run macros to have it run. I would think that technology would push us there sooner. But again, until we all collectively kind of buy into it or realize our power, it's really hard to get there.
Yeah,
So,
and I think the other, go ahead.
well, I wanted to ask, like, how did you as a manager have the courage to push back on the boundary? Like, if your manager is saying, "Hey, I need your whole team in the office, do it or don't," how did you say, "No, we're actually more productive. Good luck."
So to be more specific about that example, because I've shared this with people, but not on the podcast, I specifically as a manager was asked to tell people on my team that they needed to be in the office more than they were showing up. And what did I do? I chose to not pass that feedback on. And that's actually a lesson I learned the hard way as a manager, is that you get a lot of things coming at you as a manager of, hey, you need to go tell your people this. And you can choose as a manager if you pass that on or not. And there were a couple situations where I passed on the feedback and I almost like a robot, and I regretted it. And so with this specific situation, I just said, you know what? I'm happy with the people on my team's performance. I don't think they need to be physically in the office. I know their reasons for not wanting to be. As long as they're getting their work done, I don't care. And in that situation, it kind of just went away. No one ever came back and were like, hey, did you tell them? But that's an example of like, I think you just got to say, like, I also can make some rules. And if someone would have called me out, I would have been willing to defend my team. And I would have said, hey, like, they're getting their work done. Like, what is the big, it's the whole in-office thing is weird. It's like, people at the tops like own personal thing of like, if I'm going to be here, I want other people to be here. And it just isn't warranted. So that's how that went.
No, but I'm trying to glean on that, about like or learn from that about setting your own boundary and feeling confident in it because I feel like that's something I will need in the future. It's not about, oh, you got here at 9:05, you're 5 minutes late. It's no, I got my work done. I feel confident in that. Next question. Thank you next.
I would love, maybe we can do like a whole episode just on when we talk about setting boundaries, what that looks like in practice, because I've got a lot of examples to share, but I think we need more of that because I think there's two parts of it. There's an emotional side, which you just hit on, which is like, you've got to have the confidence in yourself to be like, this is what I'm going to do. And like, if you don't like that, sorry. And then you've got to have the practical tools to say, what does this look like? So a couple quick examples is like, for me, it's like blocking off my calendar if I want to go. And I used to do this when I was I've always done this, by the way, in corporate America, full-time jobs. I never connected Teams and email to my phone. So I had to physically open my laptop to be connected to work. I would block my calendar when, I wanted to go to a workout class. I would block my calendar for lunch at times. Like a lot of smart people are doing this and they're not talking about it. So like,
I'm
I think
shocked.
more people are doing that than you realize.
I'm really shocked about the not connecting Teams to your phone, like you needing a laptop, because I feel like that is the one thing that kind of makes or breaks your career, right? You miss an email that was sent late at night, you don't respond timely. That's the first thing that, you get, at least I would get yelled at about. So I felt the pressure. So to your point, like once I can have the tools or understand, hey, how do I feel confident in this tool I just exercised? I'll be able to get there.
Well, and I remember when I started doing that, it was after my first consulting job, and I was answering email around the clock and all this stuff. So I just said, you know what, I'm going to cut that off. And every time I would start working with a new manager, I would tell them, hey, just so you know, I don't have Teams or email connected on my phone. So if it's an emergency, text me. I almost never got a text message. I never got like a slap on the wrist. And I don't remember there being times, I mean, unless you work in an emergency room, like what is so important that it can't wait from like, 5 p.m. to 8 a.m. the next day? That is, if there's something that critical, that is concerning. Like, what the heck? So people need to respect those boundaries. And if there's a couple times where, there are the instances where you get the ping on Teams and it's like, hey, I need this slide done in the next 2 hours. Like, yeah, I mean, you just got to be mindful of that, or it's like, send me an email. But I think I've rarely been in situations where that's hurt me. And I didn't, no one knew that about me. Like my peers, I didn't start sharing that till a few years into not having that connected. So it's not like people know like, oh, Sophia's disconnected. Like look at her. She doesn't have Teams on her phone. No, no one's thinking about that. They're thinking about themselves. But yeah, there's so many
No,
little examples like that where I think it just, you can do it and it's like, you don't need to parade it to the world. But I know a lot of high performers that are doing those things. Not everyone, but
but I'm also thinking of the impact. Let's just say I did want to ping you something. I actually, you aren't available. Like your little green light is not on. You are offline. So that forces me to be self-sufficient and try to figure it out, either do it myself, find other modes to do it. But just the fact that you aren't green, it causes me, someone who needs your help, to pause. And if you're
I,
always green, they never pause.
I'm laughing because like the whole green light on Teams thing is like such a deep seated like worry of people still. Like I still know people that are like, yeah, I make sure my light's green, when I'm on. And I've moved away from that. I actually log off of Teams if I'm not available. It's like, why do we feel the need to be 8 hours a day green light? No, if I'm eating lunch, I am not a green light. I am no light. Like if I'm on a walk with my dog, I am a yellow light. Like we cannot be green light people 8 hours a day. That is insanity. But we have this fear of like, gotta be on, gotta answer the ping right away. And one thing I think about a lot is in all of the managers I've had, I've never had managers where when I ping them, they respond within a second, or when I email them, they email me back within 5 minutes. But for some reason, we feel like we need to be those people. Like we need to have an answer right away. It's like absolutely not. So it's a little bit of a cyclical thing too, where I've told people like you gotta create your own personal brand has to be one of like, I don't knee jerk respond. I don't answer within the second. I think carefully, I respond, in a really well thought out manner. And sometimes that means you'll get an email from me in 5 hours versus 2 minutes. We all know people that do that. So like, why can't we do that for ourselves?
Good
But
point.
anyways, okay. Let's see what else I have here. Oh, okay. So let's transition a little bit. I know we've got about 15 minutes left into like your excitement for the future. So even though you talk as if you've been, on a sabbatical for a longer time than you have, because I feel like you have so many great insights already. Like, what are your plans for the next, call it 5.5 months? Like, do you have any idea of how you'll approach that time? What you're most excited to do? What you hope to learn?
So I really want to get to reconnect to who I am and what makes me happy, what makes me shine from within. And I think in finding that, I can find a career or a job or a volunteer opportunity that links to that. So that way it feels less of work or less of me becoming who I was running away from, right? So in order to do that, I mentioned before, like I'm taking walks like without a podcast or without music, just observing and trying to appreciate what's around me. I was seeing a therapist, and the therapist gave me a bunch of things like, "Hey, you need to answer these questions." One of the things that she said to me was, "Look in the mirror and tell me who you see." And of course, I was like, "I'm gonna go get her. I'm an achiever." And she's like, "Okay." aside from that, give me more. Like, what else do you see? And I was baffled because that's all I know. So I'm still trying to work through that, trying to figure out who am I really? Because to my point, if my goal for the past umpteen years was just to make it, to get the good job, like that requires a lot of disconnecting from your true feelings. Yes, I have to work late. So what? Yes, I'm tired. Yes, the commute is really arduous. Like I'm disconnecting from all of that. I'm kind of disconnecting kind of like my sentiment toward those things so that way I can just go and do and check boxes. So I am trying to connect more with myself. In order to do that, like I have a habit tracker, I'm definitely journaling. I have my affirmation card. I took your advice that you mentioned on one of your podcasts about doing like a resort pass. I'm doing class pass. So that way I'm doing different, I'm actually getting out of the house every day to do some things for myself, not to run an errand, but to try a yoga class or to try cycling or to try kickboxing. Those things are definitely pushing me outside of my comfort zone. And I would also say I'm reading a lot of, trying to read a lot of fiction books just to jump into someone else's reality and be there. I'm limiting my screen time because I'm like, hey, if I'm going to do this, I need to absorb all of it. And I do enjoy skating, like roller skating. So
Hmm.
when the weather is nice, I will either go to a rink or I'll skate outside and try to learn some new moves. Because to me, it's
Oh, that's
freeing
awesome.
to put in earbuds and then to skate around to like your favorite music. I feel 13 again. I'm like, what's a problem? You know?
I need to do that. Oh my gosh, that is something I bet would be so fun to do as an adult. That's amazing. You have a great list of things. I think that's awesome.
I
And
have yet to do, oh,
no, go ahead.
I have yet to do, I do want to write like a bucket list, of things that I want to stop doing or things that I feel like I need to do. But I feel like it's too early right now. I'm still in the numbness phase that it's
Hmm.
it's too early. It's too early to truly jot down a list and be intentional about it because I'm afraid if I make a list, I'll just whiz right through it. Check, 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 check. I did it. And it's like, no, we're actually enjoying this time. So
I think that's key. Like, I think part of taking a sabbatical is letting go, for those of us who are like overachievers, is letting go of that need to always produce or perform or have something to show for it. But at the same time, it's totally fine to say, am not someone who likes to sit around on a couch for 8 hours a day. So I think you can be like productive and go do stuff without it needing to be a check the box type of list.
yeah, someone actually asked me like, so what is your goal, when you come out of this? What are you looking for? Like, what do you plan to achieve? And I was like, I said, nothing. I said, the goal is to accomplish nothing, to be. And they looked at me like I had four heads. They were like, wait, you, Sophia? That's not you. To do nothing, to not accomplish anything? And I think through those little habits, I will pick up something, but I am appreciating the fact that the board is white, that I'm not, pre-chalking in or mapping out. I need to achieve this and achieve that because then I'll get here and there. I feel like I'm laying the right groundwork for whatever to grow. And I need to be open to that. And I'm trying to, deprogram myself and rewire myself. And I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, it's an unlearning. Well, because if you're focused on is like, how can I be successful in my sabbatical, then it goes back to that, like, where are you placing success? And I think too, like our society, both we put this expectation on ourselves, but then we also expect it of other people. Is like when people go through a transformation or something as drastic as like quitting her job, I also would get people being like, what are you going to do after? Like people are so interested in like, what's going to come of this? It's almost like they want to see a dramatic before and after. They want it to be like, Sophia quit her job in finance and now she's going to open her own business and like, and I put that
Yeah.
pressure on myself at times. And I think I it's so freeing to let go of that, but also realize like some of the biggest transformations from my own sabbatical are totally invisible, like to most people. But one of them being like my husband will tell you like he notices a complete change in me. Like I'm no longer as like serious and uptight and snippety and my perception of what work is and my relationship with that is different. But like no one may notice that really outside of myself. And it's not like I am this like completely new person or have like opened my own business, but I don't know why we just are so people want those like again like success stories in the traditional sense.
But it's the instant gratification too. It's the world we live in.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine this was 40 years ago. People would say, "Oh yeah, well, I want to hear how that turned out. You know, I know she'll learn something because the world just moved at a slower pace then." And now it's instant. You know, you order stuff, it's at your door in 2 hours. You know, you're scrolling through Instagram, you can see the before, the after right there.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of it is to be in uncharted territory and to truly, you know, just sit back and be okay with the lack of rules or the lack of um, milestones that I'm setting for myself. I think that's the beauty. And again, that's part of my shame and the judgment that comes along with it is because I know people know me as like the type A, the go-getter, and they're like, wait, you did what? Are you okay? Like, that's not like you. And to be okay with that and to not care about their judgment. And I've also had people give me things to do. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Don't project your problems onto, well, you know, if I had all that time, I would do this, this, and this. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, none of that is me. I'm not doing any of those things. And I'm also giving myself permission during the sabbatical to drop the ball on a few things. Normally for
Mm-hmm.
my friend circle, normally I'm the one that's like, what time are we meeting? What, the third Friday, you can believe the second Friday before, hey everyone, just a reminder, we're meeting here. It's like, no, if we're going to get together, we will. And if I forget to send out the invite, maybe someone else could, like,
Yeah.
and it's okay.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. It's the comments you get are definitely interesting. I mean, when I first started my sabbatical, my mom was like our first call, she was like, maybe you need to talk to someone. Like, I mean, I think my family thought like I was really going through it, and I was actually cool with my decision, and I was like probably like the least judgmental of my decision. I was happy. I viewed it as a very positive thing, but I do think rightfully so, people were like, you know, is this the midlife crisis? Like, do you want to go talk to someone? But yeah, it's
Yeah,
just so
yeah,
interesting.
and then they're worried about you because they're like, but what's next? No, no, but tell me. No, no, I know you know, and it's a secret, but tell me what's the next step? You're like, just relaxing. That's the next step. Calm
Yeah,
down.
there will be a time and place to think of the next step. Like truthfully, when I was on month five, because I did have like I was like, okay, 6 months and I'm good. Month five, I started to think like, what should I do in terms of money income next steps? But I did not think about that for the first 5 months, and I'm glad because I mean, that can be a spiral. Like, I mean, you can start thinking about that stuff and it's really not helpful unless you're, you know, at the point of wanting to go back to work. So I think just giving, you know, space to not even think about a job for a little bit is the whole point of a sabbatical. So I know we're going to be talking probably a couple more times throughout your journey, maybe midway through and then towards the end. So I want to kind of ask you this question as like a time capsule that we can look back on. And not to say you need like, you know, an answer to this, but if you had to predict like where you'll be at the end of your sabbatical or where you hope you'll be, what you hope you'll learn, what you may do post sabbatical right now, what are some thoughts that come to your head?
Um, I'm thinking I can enjoy or be comfortable and just being, right? I don't always have to be go, go, go and do, do, do. Um, a lot of times people say like life is short, but I'm hoping that when I come out of the sabbatical, I'll appreciate the length of life and how long it is. And, like appreciate the length of the days, appreciate the process things take, appreciate the long line at the grocery store, instead of resenting it. Maybe that's a better example. But just an appreciation. And also just being comfortable in setting boundaries. I mentioned before that a lot of people want to give me their errands to run or have these little jobs they want me to do. And I'm being comfortable and being conscious and very strategic in saying, no, I'm good. No, thank you. Or when people ask, hey, well, what did you do today? It's like, Did you need something? Like let me pivot them instead of us going down a rabbit hole. So just comfortable with protecting my energy, comfortable with setting boundaries, comfortable with being more well-rounded, even if that means I have to create the circle. I have to give less of this in order to do more of that. So I think maybe having more quality yeses and less quality nos. No, how does that saying go?
I
I'm
like
so big on
that.
sayings.
I like that. I really like that. Yeah. More quality yeses. Not saying yes to everything, but more
Yeah,
quality
quality yeses.
yeses. That's smart. I
Yeah,
like that. Cool.
we'll see.
We'll
We'll see.
see. We'll see. We'll look back on this when we do your like end of sabbatical episode, and we'll see where you're at. All right. So final question I leave. Or wait, before I get to that, is there anything else, Sophia, I didn't ask that you wish I would have or that you want to share with listeners?
Um, I just want to say that like transformation or trying to deprogram yourself takes a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that as soon as I would put in my resignation that I would feel a sense of relief. And I was shocked that it's remorse that I feel, right? And as I unpack that, I'm realizing that, I've been working for X amount of years. I've been grind, grind, grind. I've been putting all of my feelings, my emotions, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, on the shelf so I could just keep going. And when you step outside of the race, like it's okay to be winded. It's okay to just walk a little bit before you get back, into the rat race. And so I'm trying to be patient with myself. So I would just say to anyone who is looking to do a sabbatical and surprised at some of the emotions that you feel, and if they aren't in line with what you thought you would feel, that's okay. Like this is a rewiring, and it's also going against the grain of society. So that is uncharted territory, and it change is uncomfortable. It'll feel uncomfortable. That's how you know you're doing something right.
Oh, I love that. That is so true. Yeah, it's not a switch you can just turn off on and off and, have all positive emotions. And like you said, there's lessons to be learned in some of the uncomfortable stuff. So that's a really good segue. And I'm curious, I'll ask this in a slightly different way since what you just said was some really good advice. But thinking about people that are feeling stuck in their job or feel unhappy, I know there's thousands of people out there that just think, oh, if I could just do this, like, or take this leap of faith, what piece of advice would you like to leave them with? Or what is one of your favorite quotes that you think they could benefit from hearing?
Whew, okay. So if you do want to take a sabbatical and you don't know it's possible, I would like to encourage people to come up with some sort of exit strategy in your mind or just like reprogram, the workday. Often we see like those little bingo cards of like this conference call will always have these calls. Try to find a way to make it fun and lighthearted. And I think that can kind of help you begin the deprogramming phase instead of always being on the go. But I think one of my favorite things, and I don't know who said this, but you can't pour from an empty cup, but also to pivot that. But what are you pouring from that cup? Are you pouring out kindness? Are you pouring out, patience, or is it impatience? Or is it frustration? And if you realize that what you're pouring out isn't, you know, what you want it to be, you have the power to change that. And yeah, maybe it isn't a sabbatical. Maybe it's taking a 4-day staycation where you get off all your devices, or maybe it is like going to see a therapist. But I do think that corporate America and being workaholics, I just feel like it's draining our purpose as humans in society. I mean, that's what separates us from animals, right? Is the fact that we have thoughts and we can question things and we can communicate. And we really need to tap into that. We're all given talents. And if we feel burnt out and drained, maybe we aren't truly utilizing them as much as we can. So just examine that cup that you're pouring from, because trust me, I was the queen of, oh yeah, my cup is full. I'm able to check things off. I'm pouring in time and effort and energy. Meanwhile, people are feeling resentment. They're feeling irritation. And that's not who I want it to be. So just re-examine that cup that you're pouring from.
Thank you. I love that. All right. Well, thank you so much. This has been such an amazing conversation. I can't wait for everyone to hear it. And then I can't wait to do follow-up episodes with you. We'll wait a few months and check in and see where you're at.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks so much, Sam.